Dumont was founded on July 20, 1894 as part of the larger Dutch province of Schalenberg. The name was then changed to Dumont in honor of Dumont Clark, the borough's first mayor, over his objections.
I object. Even I object. Then I object too.
Boroughitis, also borough fever or boroughmania, was the creation, usually by referendum, of large numbers of small boroughs in New Jersey in the 1890s, particularly in Bergen County. Attempts by the New Jersey legislature to reform local government and the school systems led to the breakup of most of Bergen County's townships into small boroughs, communities that still balkanize the state's political map. This occurred because of development of the commuter suburbs in New Jersey, residents of which wanted more government services than did the long-time rural population. Thus, Dumont was founded upon this boroughmania.
The Dutch settled on the Hudson River, at the mouth and at the head of navigation.
Before Dumont was founded by the Dutch, however, it was a Native American settlement. The Lenni Lenape people lived on the land originally and called the region Shaichbi. The specific Lenni Lenape people who occupied Bergen County were the Unami. Their sachem was the peace chief Oritam when Hudson came. The specific tribe that lived in the Dumont area were the Tapans under Chief Sessakenek. The tribe was extremely peaceful and friendly. Their neighbors, the Hackensacks, greeted Hudson and the Lenni Lenape in general, welcomed the first settlers from Holland in 1624. During the American Revolution, Bergen County organized a Committee of Correspondence, Committee of Safety, and an association to enforce the embargo on British goods. New Jersey Assembly also unanimously sanctioned the acts of the Continental Congress. What is now Dumont was known as Schalenberg at the time of the Revolutionary War. Derek Banta served as a private in the Bergen County militia during the Revolutionary War. He was born in a house built in around 1735, located at this site in Schalenberg. In 1776, Derek inherited the house. During the war, a considerable amount of Derek's property was taken or destroyed by the British. In 1778, a band of Tories, Americans who supported the British during the Revolutionary War, burned Derek Banta's home and barn. Sometime between 1780 and 1790, Derek Banta built a house on the site of the one that had been burned. Since 1929, it has been used as the Dumont Public Library. General Sir Henry Clinton said that Schalenberg was the most dangerous place on the American continent after the retreat of Washington and the British devastation of the area for the next 4 years. When the British entered New Jersey, they offered good terms to those who swore allegiance to the king. Many swore allegiance, and some, like Albert Zabriskie of Dumont, became secret agents who spied for the British. The British plundered and stole food, as well as setting houses on fire on those who refused to swear allegiance. William J. Christie of Dumont supplied American agents with valuable information about troop movements and served as a private against the British. He also lost 2 different residences to fires because he was a patriot. Although there was a law against it, half of Bergen County constantly traded with and supplied the enemy. To prevent this, every male and female above the age of 14 was required to have a pass. But this did not stop the desperate people. Almost every family in the area had a male member carried off to prison as the Patriot militia seized Tories, and the Tory troops seized patriots and burned and looted. In 1777, General Sir Henry Clinton landed 2,000 troops in New Jersey to forage for food. Again, everything was stripped clean and the people in the region were left with nothing. In 1778, Tory homes were confiscated and sold, including 2 Dumont farms. When passing through after the war, an artillery officer from General Washington's army described the formerly delightful village of Schalenberg, reduced to a heap of rubble. In 1779, even as the tide of the war had turned and the Americans were becoming victorious, a large outlaw band of loyalist refugees terrorized, looted, killed, and burned the houses of the people of Bergen County. On June 24th of that year, the gang struck Dumont, burning down 5 homes and only stopping with the arrival of the militia. After the war, recovery was fairly quick since the Jersey Dutch had always been hard-working. During the mid-1800s, when the Civil War came, there was strong pro-slavery sentiment within Dumont, which considered itself a border state. Bergen County was one of the slave trading centers of New Jersey, and a quarter of the population in 1737 were slaves. New Jersey voted against Lincoln both times that he ran for office. In 1804, New Jersey passed a law for gradual emancipation over the objections of the Democratic Dutch. In 1846, slavery was declared illegal, but there was still pro-slavery sentiment, and Lincoln lost the state in his election. A Confederate flag was flown in Hackensack, but the dominie Gordon of the church rallied against slavery, despite anger of his congregation at his words. The Civil War did not have a huge impact on Dumont, and did not split it the way it did some other areas. Afterward, the North and South churches finally made peace. In 1871, the state split up the Hackensack Township into 3 townships, one of which was the Palisades Township and included Bergenfield, Dumont, Tenafly, New Milford, Cresskill, Oradell, and Demarest. A township physician was appointed who made sure that diseases did not spread. If someone got sick, he would visit them, tell them not to go outside, and put red flags in front of the house. In the Panic of 1873, unemployment in the township rose and the poor farm of the township became so overcrowded that churches were asked to take in more people. Skilled craftsmen worked on farms for $1 a day, and farmers lost their land and were forced to work on the land of others. There were also gang problems. In the 1880s, school facilities needed to be enlarged, but the choice of site enraged many people to the south of the district, leading to the eventual split up of Bergenfield and Dumont. In 1890, the first real estate developers began to appear, who sold small lots of land in the country by arranging for Sunday specials to attract interested people to Dumont, who then bought the lots. As a result of corporations like Boston Land Company and the Kensington Land Company, the land began to be developed. In 1894, the School District Act was passed by the New Jersey legislature, creating township school districts and terminating independent school districts. This meant that each school district could no longer control their expenditures, and instead all debts would have to be paid by township taxpayers pro rata. Instead of following this act, they found a loophole in the Borough Act of 1878, which exempted boroughs, towns, villages, and cities from such provisions. And as a result, 26 new boroughs were formed in 1894. In 1895, 20 streetlights were installed and, quote, Lamplighter Joe tended the lights at dusk and dawn. The main roads were paved with crushed stone at this time, while other roads and streets were hard-packed dirt or sandy paths. Within the same year, the town officially became Dumont, despite Dumont Clark's objections to losing the Dutch name of the town.
I object. Even I object. And I object too.
The first volunteer company in the borough was the Schallenberg Hook, and the latter company was organized in 1896 and used horse-drawn equipment and great iron rings at many corners. The Dumont population in 1900 was 634 and in 1910 was 1,763, so the town remained rural. In this time, baseball was their favorite sport, and Dumont and Bergenfield games were, quote, better than the World Series. Everyone came to the games and the girls were the best rooters, according to Jacob Hill, a retired cashier of Dumont National Bank. Over 1 million men passed through Camp Merritt in 1917 and 1918 on their way to France. The site was chosen because of 2 railroads and Alpine Landing, which were helpful for transporting troops. It was named after Merritt, after Major General Wesley Merritt, who was a general in the Civil War, Indian campaigns, and the Spanish-American War, and the first Governor-General of the Philippine Islands. 120 Dumont men were in the service, and the officers were quartered in homes in Osborne's Hill, and the church offered to help the soldiers for free. After Camp Merritt was dismantled in 1918, the only remnants were the church flagpole and the Veterans Memorial in the northeast corner of the church. The Dumont Clark Mansion was the center of the camp. The community of Dumont made the soldiers feel welcome as the Girls' Patriotic League was formed, and 135 soldiers were married in Dumont during the war years. The Dumont Public Library was also opened during World War I, and it had a weekly circulation of 25 books. After World War I, most of the barracks for Camp Merritt were torn down or destroyed by fire, and Dumont became a quiet residential town again. Modern conveniences of city water and electric street and house lights were introduced at the turn of the century. The railroad station was built in 1916. Mayor Fleet, a businessman, was supposed to open the station by giving a speech and by buying the first ticket. Unfortunately, he lost track of time and was horse riding in the countryside when he heard the chime of the clock. Since he was late, he rode straight to the ceremony in his riding habit, which had no habit and no pockets for money. When it was time to buy a ticket, the mayor was embarrassed as the crowd laughed, and the station agent, Harry C. Hoshu, loaned the mayor a dime, which started Hoshu's career as a banker. In 1921, Dumont organized a police department. Today's force has a staff of 35. Today, Dumont still relies on dedicated volunteers to man its fire department and ambulance corps. In 1925, as bus service to New York City began, rail service began to diminish. In 1926, the theater was built, and within the same year, 2 fires were started at the church which almost ruined the building. A bolt of lightning struck the steeple within weeks afterwards, and its height meant that it was impossible to reach the flames until a Tenafly's pumper arrived on the scene to stop the fire. It was then restored in 2 years by the community. The Lutheran Church of Our Redeemer was created in 1927 along with the Jewish Community Center. During the Great Depression, the combined borough and school debt was $2.8 million in 1928, and the borough had difficulty paying it back as the Great Depression started. Public employees were paid through baby bonds or scrip. Many townspeople were unemployed and could not pay taxes at this time.
And that one is you.
Dumont High School was built in 1928 and was added onto in 1955 and 1961. In 1930, the population was at 5,861 people. In 1937, the Dumont Volunteer Ambulance Service Corps served 5 adjacent towns during the first year and is now on Veterans Plaza. During World War II, 1,107 men and women from Dumont served in the armed forces. James O'Donnell brought down 4 Nazi planes heroically and received the Air Medal and 3 oak leaf clusters, while L. Alfred Jenny was instrumental in the reconstruction process in Italy as Director of Public Works there and received a citation from the Italian government and an award, Commander in the Order of St. Maurice and St. Lazarus. Dumont's fastest rate of growth took place during the post-war period as 10,000 new residents arrived within 15 years, leading to the construction of 1,500 housing units and a population of 18,835 by the end of the 50s. In 1947, Dumont became the first town in the state to establish a veterans housing development, which provided emergency housing for veterans and their families. In 1973, Colonel Floyd Jemmy Thompson came home as the longest-held prisoner of war in the country's history. He suffered from 9 years of imprisonment. Many people find the story of the serial killer of Dumont to be the most fascinating part of its history. There was a serial killer named Richard Kuklinski who lived in Dumont with his family. He came to Manhattan numerous times over the ensuing weeks and months and killed people. Always men, never a female, he says. Always someone who rubbed him the wrong way for some imagined or extremely slight reason. He shot, stabbed, and bludgeoned men to death. He left some where they dropped. He dumped some into the nearby Hudson River. Murder for Richard became sport. The New York police came to believe that the bums were attacking and killing one another, never suspecting that a full-fledged serial killer from New Jersey was coming over to Manhattan's West Side for the purpose of killing people, to practice and perfect murder. Richard made the West Side of Manhattan a kind of lab for murder, a school, he says.
Make a pretty one for your wife. So for my personal point of view, get an ugly girl to marry you. A pretty woman makes her husband look small, and very often causes his downfall. As soon as he marries her, then she starts to do the things that will break his heart. But if you make an ugly woman your wife, you'll be happy for the rest of your life. An ugly woman cook meals on time. She'll always give you peace of mind. If you wanna be happy for the rest of your life. never make a baby